We're live. We're live.
We're live.
They were just waiting for more people to join.
Wait, can you? Yes, we're live. Yes. Oh my gosh, this is happening. Exciting.
Hey.
Okay, nice. Welcome everyone. Sorry, very sorry for the delay. We had a problem with YouTube, and then we were just talking about live. We're all very chatty here. So yes, I just would like to welcome you all behind the laptop to a new edition of PR Lab webinars, and welcome to the speakers. Here with me we have Kirsten, Ben, Luis, and Sebastian. Welcome, guys.
Hello. Glad to be here.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining and for being patient with the whole webinar, like technology drama. So thank you. And we can't wait to get started. So as always, our webinars, the way we go about them is we start first with a short presentation by each one of the speakers about who they are and what they're doing and how they've been, in this case, boosting engagement in their digital platforms. And they're gonna all talk about building engagement in digital and social platforms. And then we are gonna open the space for a Q&A where you can all ask questions through the YouTube chat box, and we will address them live. And that's the benefit of joining a webinar, basically, that you can ask everyone questions. So let's get started, shall we? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna share my screen, and I'm gonna present basically, and then you guys, the speakers, please let me know whenever I need to change the slide. And here we are. Yes, so basically, this is us. Here we go. And the webinar today is about how to increase engagement on digital and social platforms. As you all know, things are changing. That's a cliche now. Every single week, the story has been changing as well. Based on coronavirus, at the beginning, we were like, okay, what is happening, freaking out. Then we started accepting it. Now we are reaccommodating and adjusting to what's happening. And each one of the speakers today have a really particular story to share. We have, for example, Sebastian from FanMov, that they launched a bike in the midst of the pandemic. And he's gonna tell us everything about it. Then we have Luis, that on the other side, a lot of, well, Tickets is basically a company that, well, correct me if I'm wrong, but people can buy and resell tickets for festivals and concerts through their phones. And as you know,
Swap.
And up, yeah, there you go. And then a lot of festivals and concerts got canceled. So he's gonna tell us also how he's been dealing with that from media point of view.
Matias, you're getting the wrong company. That you're talking about Ticket Swap.
Oh,
tickets.
Sorry. Oh my gosh. Well,
ticket sales, tickets to museums and attractions all over the world.
All over the world. There you go. Sorry for that.
Yes.
And then we have that he's an expert in building communities. So anyway, I'm not gonna say anything else because as Luis happened, I just mentioned phones, and that was a different company. Sorry. So you're gonna tell the right story. And then afterwards, again, please ask questions through the live chat and on YouTube, and then we will address them live while we speak. And also afterwards, we're gonna have a chat, fireside chat, all of us together. So, well, this is me. I'm Matias. I'm the founder of PR Lab. PR Lab is a PR agency based in Amsterdam, specialized in startups and scale-ups. We operate from Amsterdam to the world, but this webinar is not about me, so I'm just going to skip this slide and go right into the first speaker of today, who is Kirsten. Kirsten, the stage is all yours.
Take it away. Thank you. Great for being here. So I have 7 minutes to tell you something about me and what I'm doing in my daily life. You could just switch the slide. Click. Okay, so I studied psychology, but I've rolled into community management in 2008. I've been a community manager for digital platforms since 2008. I started for the Chamber of Commerce, and after that I became a consultant. In 2013, I started working as an independent contractor, and in 2017 I started an agency together with Peter Stahl. You can switch. So this is our team. That's my dog. We have an office dog because it's good for your stress. It lowers your stress levels. So we have a small team and we're all building communities for various companies. Switch. Yeah, we just wrote a book last year. So it's still the Dutch version, but we just had it translated in English. So it will be soon available also in English. If you want to know the basics of community building, well, you can look it up. Switch. And this I just want to show quickly about the clients that we work for, because we build communities for commercial companies, but also not for governmental organizations, for associations, for foundations, for in educational sector, but also with libraries. So basically, we're very blessed to help a lot of companies with communities. Next. And we only work basically with owned platforms. So Ben from Inside, it's great that he's here. We do a lot with the Insider platform, but we work also with a lot of other community software. So we do build some communities also with the help of social media, but mostly we build them on an own platform, and then we use social media as outposts to get people to the platform. Okay, next. So you can go next. So what is community? I mean, I think it's always important to start with that, because every group of people now it's being labeled a community, whether it's people that are, member of a newsletter or just a regular group. They're just like a community, which for us is not true. So we really want a group to come together, whether it's on and offline, and they have a lot of things in common, like interests or circumstance or location or an ambition, and they come together on a regular basis. So these are some criteria in this definition that really have to, you have to be able to tick those boxes for it to really be a community. And I think to obtain a shared goal, I think that is one of the most important things, because people wouldn't feel that sense of community if they don't have like a goal that they want to obtain together. Next slide. So, and in your content strategy, we always say to place the community at the heart of all your channels. So basically, what I've seen in my career is that when you place a community and it works very well, like a forum, and there's a lot of interaction going there, it gets much more traction also through Google than the website. So it's very interesting to use user-generated content from your target group, which could be very different, and to use them for content also in your other channels. So next one. I think I hear myself, right? Is that me? Is that like an echo? Maybe. Anyway, this I want to share with you also the essential steps. You can flip to the next one. So this is an important infographic that we just built. It's based on years of experience on the steps that you need to take to build a community. And it all starts basically with a concept. So you might have like a thesis in mind, like I could build a community for that target group, that niche, and they might have these things together in common, and they might want to work towards that goal. So that's your concept. Then you test it. We test it with sending out questionnaires, surveys. We do a lot of interviews. And then when we see that there's enough ground to basically not only build community, but facilitate community, then we say, okay, we go ahead with it. And then when we do go ahead with it in step 3 and 4, we already have a core group of people that establish the community. They basically put their stamp on the community, they define the rules, they define the culture. So this is one of the most important steps to take. If you cannot get those 15, 20 people together to form the initial community, then there might not be enough ambition or drive to have a community at all. So when you work with your proactive members, then you start to define the strategy. Then you also define what your tooling will be, you know, how you will use your social media, how you will use your own platform, what's the positioning of the community within, you know, your website and your other channels. And then you have your activation calendar, which has everything to do with planning and content and who you're going to engage, where and when. You all do this together with your core group. That's important to mention. And then you go live. So before we ever go live with a community platform, there's a lot already going on behind the scenes. And we make sure that the platform is always filled, not with content from the organization that, you know, the communication people might have written, but it's really filled already with relevant and actual discussions that are, you know, relevant to the target group. Then we go live, and then what you see is that a community will evolve. You might need to check again the strategy, might need to change things in the strategy. You might want to attract different kind of target groups so you can make it grow. And I think a very important part here also is that you have to involve your organization. So if you have a startup, for example, your organization is not such a fixed thing, you know, but if you have like a large corporate organization that is built on hierarchy and really fixed processes and structures, and you see that a very hierarchical, what's it called? Hierarchies, you know, with a lot of layers, an organization with a lot of layers, and like a flat community, which doesn't have any of those, you know, power structures, they clash. So basically you're also working a lot with, you know, integrating those two. So that's also a lot of, you know, work that you need to do in building a community for an organization. Mm-hmm. So next one, because we have to move towards the end, some criteria for successful communities. I think I always say there are three basic criteria. First is your strategy. It has to be based on a real need and research. The second one is tooling. So you have to make sure that you can, you know, facilitate the right behavior to obtain your goals with the right tools. And the third very essential one is community management. So you need a community manager, or you need a community management team who's going to make sure that, you know, you got the right people on board, that people are being facilitated, that your content is right, that your organization is being engaged. So these are a couple of things that you have to think about with community management tasks. But it's a very large role. So don't give it to the first trainee that you find. Make sure you have somebody with some experience. And the better thing is to create a team so everybody can take a couple of things from this list and make sure, you know, they work from their own strength. Okay, so I think that's it. That was my story, super fast.
Nice.
And I'm curious if there are questions.
Yeah, so again, if there are questions, please add them to the chat box on YouTube. I have a question myself that I want to ask you while you were presenting. Okay, so I'm sure in the audience, I mean, we have a lot of social media experts.
Oh, you're being muted. Oh, there you are again.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I'm hearing you now.
Okay, sorry. So I was just wondering, based on, I mean, we have a lot of members in the community that are social media experts and marketing experts. So everybody kind of like knows what community management means. But what are the common mistakes that you see? You just mentioned one, like putting like I don't know, an intern to manage all your social media. But based on your experience, like vast experience in creating communities for big companies, small companies, what are the common mistakes that you see happening?
Well, I think the most common mistake is that social media managers usually are not community managers. So they're mostly busy with, you know, getting to know the social channels and the algorithms and knowing how to work with the social channels. Their aim is more to getting, you know, reach and awareness, whereas community building is about connecting people around an organization. So it's more about matchmaking, relationship building, it's getting to know people, it's asking the right questions. So it's basically a whole different set of qualities that you need to have as a person. It's not a lot about, for example, also in the beginning, it's not about getting your outreach or as much awareness as you can get. It's not about large numbers. It's about getting small groups that are highly active and create a lot of value together.
And some of the benefits of that is, I imagine, long-lasting engagement, right, with the brand.
Exactly. So it's community building is something that you do for the long term. And as when you build your relationships in the beginning and they're very stable, they can last for 20 years. So it's a whole different approach. They can coexist very nicely parallel next to each other, but it's not the same.
Gotcha.
So already this awareness is something that I see not many organizations have.
Nice. Thanks, Kirsten. And if you have any question for Kirsten, please add them in the chat box in the YouTube link. And in a bit, we're going to address them all. Thank you. Moving on to the next speaker, Ben.
Hey, thank you guys. And great to be here. And thank you, Kirsten, as well. I think it's really good that Kirsten actually spoke before me because she's sort of the community manager guru. And I guess it's as a content marketer at a community platform inside it. It's my job, I suppose, to go one step before that and sort of convince every prospects and customers the community is needed for them. And I'm going to talk a little bit more in detail about how we do that at Inside It from a content marketing standpoint as well, and how that is really centered around engagement and driving engagement from your customers. So very quickly, a little bit about me. Before that, I'm Northern Irish, as you can probably hear from my accent and see from my hair. These guys already guessed it. I have been in Amsterdam for 3 years now, nearly, and I previously actually started my career in a PR company, it's a very small PR company in Northern Ireland. And then I worked in Groupon, actually, in marketing and merchandising, who are going through their own troubles at the moment as well. But I then moved into Inside It, much happier in sort of the tech software side of things. So yeah, Inside It is an online community platform, as you guys have just heard. We are built specifically actually for B2B software companies. So being a B2B software company ourselves, we are also built for the B2B software market. And we particularly help customer success teams. And we help them in 3 main ways, I guess. First of all, we grow engagement. That's what an online community platform is primarily for. We also then offer, obviously, a platform where customers can get feedback on their own product from their customers, and where ultimately your main goal is to increase retention of your customers. And we find that, as Kirsten sort of already said, that once you get people engaged on a community platform, you really find that they want to come back for more. If you're giving them the right content and they're interacting with one another, then you're really seeing that sort of two-way engagement results in people coming back to the community, and which is exactly what you want, and remaining as customers. And it's important, I guess, to put all this in the context of what's going on in the world at the moment. And I think from a software point of view, we sort of live in a little bit of a bubble, because we have actually seen, a spiked increase in community platforms. Customers would need a place where they can get people together to engage. And so, yeah, we have been as busy as ever at the moment. So yeah, next slide. So I guess, first of all, why is there an increased need to engage at the moment? Oh, sorry, there's my door. It's like now more than ever, obviously, people need a place to engage online. And crucially, that needs to be not just one-to-one, but also like one-to-many, right? So why just speak one-to-one when you can also reach a huge audience like that in one-to-many way? We find also that, I'm sure everyone else finds this as well, is that peers, customers are willing to help each other, right? And they simply need a platform where they can do that. And this is especially important in B2B companies, where often it can be harder. B2B, I guess, relies on that one event a year where, you have a keynote speaker and then you all mingle over cocktails. But on an online community, you can really offer a platform where B2B companies can get together and share best practices, which is great. And then finally, I think it's important to note that community itself creates a sense of belonging. It's that engagement with your peers that not only makes you want to come back, but actually you feel good, right? I mean, it's nice to see how to learn from other people. So if I jump onto the next slide, I can sort of go into more detail around the content marketing side at Inside It. I just put 3 bullet points here. I went quite minimal, but I do have quite a bit of detail to share. I guess, first of all, when I first started Inside It a year ago, I remember I was going out to visit prospects, going out to visit customers, talking to them and hearing what they had to say about our platform and about online communities in general. And it was just a fantastic way into the industry for a content marketer, right, who needs to write about all this. And then I must say, I'm sure everyone else has the same feeling, well, I don't know, but it just dropped off. I was really enthusiastic. I listened to sales calls, I visited customers, and then, a month in, you write your blogs, you go back to your social media posts, and you sort of not forget what's going on around you, but you don't do that customer facing engagement as much. And I, from a marketing standpoint, think that is so essential for content marketing. So I would say that in the lockdown, this has I doubled down on my efforts to do that. In the last 6-7 weeks, I've spoken to 5, 6, 7 customers. And now that can be anything from just a simple phone call to a recorded webinar like we're doing right now, to a podcast, to just an email thread, right, where you get more details about what you need to be in tune with what your customers are coming up against, the problems that they're having, but also what your prospects are as well. So, if you get a no in a sales cycle, go to them, go to the prospect as a content marketer and say, why did you not go for our platform? And then what I find is that I use that content then to create a content strategy, right? So you're actually in touch with all of the pain points that your customers have, or your prospects, and then you go through those. And obviously, what you can't do with your own product, you can't do. But what you can do is sit down and say, right, well, we solve X, Y, and Z. And how exactly does our product do that? And then you write your content from there, basically. So I would call it almost like pain point marketing. And I think it's a really important thing for all content marketers to do. And then how you then distribute that content, it obviously is down to each individual organization. Personally at Insided, we have, for example, done a number of podcasts recently, and what we find is really effective is when we chop them up and we repurpose them on our social media channels. So we have little snippets of information sort of hitting exactly the pain points that we see our customers and our prospects talking about. And then that in itself creates engagement around and creates awareness around why communities are important. I think something that's really important to notice is that in the last 6 weeks, I also saw that, blogs I'd written 7-8 months ago were suddenly becoming popular again. Now, maybe they were around engagement, maybe they were around communication, but it's really important to keep an eye on that and actually check and make sure that what you did in the past may well be even more relevant than it was then. And, a prime example is like a blog that I wrote 8 months ago on B2B customer communication is now one of our most read pieces. And I went back in there, and you need to optimize your work, and make sure that you're capturing the leads there, that, optimize it in a way where you can capture leads, and maybe it wasn't before. I think from a content marketing standpoint, too many companies really just churn out content. And, I think we can all be sort of victims of just sitting on a mountain of content and not really knowing what to do with it. And so distribution is really key. And, just the example of chopping up those podcasts and reusing them, or even, a 40-minute webinar could suddenly be 3 blog posts that are really, really effective. And that creates engagement in itself. If we just jump to one last slide, I'll give you a bit of a story. As I was saying, I was talking to a lot of customers recently. This one was actually a sort of a B2B and B2C company. They're called Shootproof, and they are a platform where photographers can sell and publish their photographs online. And of course, it was hugely valuable for them to set up an online community. But what happened was when the pandemic hit, they realized that their photographers more than ever needed a place where they could share best practices, talk to each other, and even just see what everyone else was doing in the industry and how they were coping. So actually, as you can see from the quote here, when I spoke to Megan, they said that they really expedited the process of launching an online community. They needed to go as quickly as possible. And all we did was had a conversation about how they went about it and why they did it. And then suddenly, as a content marketer, it's a dream. You have all sorts of content as to why a community is really important at the moment at this time. So yeah, if these slides are shared, I guess you guys can go on and listen to the podcast as well if you're interested, or I can send it on. So yeah, and then just lastly, I just have some engagement stats just to show you guys where we are at the moment and how things are in the community world. I guess we saw on our own community platforms in the last 2-3 months that there's been been like a 30% increase roughly in community engagement. As Kirsten said as well, that's not just, it's in fact, it's more heavily weighted on user generated content, right? Like people wanting to engage more together rather than your own company content. Personally at Insided, which is again, content marketers' dream, we've seen a 60% increase in our own organic traffic, which I'm sure everyone else is also seeing. People are sitting at home, they have more time, they're spending time online, and it's really important that we capitalize on that. Again, our blog views are up, people are more interested, and yeah, peer-to-peer support where people are willing to help each other in some of our communities as high as 90%. So it really has, yeah, it's an incredible time actually to be in software and to be in marketing and to be in community building. Yeah, if there was one key takeaway I would say for growing engagement, it's talking to customers, talking to prospects, and using that content to engage others. And yeah, that's that, I guess.
Thanks, Ben. And I guess one question that, I mean, just came from the audience, but also I wanted to ask you throughout your presentation is, well, Kirsten talked about communities in general. You have a more like a narrow focus on B2B communities. So what is, in your opinion, like the main difference between like building community engagement for a B2B company than for a B2C? Like what are things that people need to keep in mind and like the golden nuggets for that?
So I think there's probably two things. I do think that this idea of pinpoint marketing is it's not new in B2B, but I think people are really tapping into it, right? So you need to look at your prospects and say, you know, what are the problems that they're having and how do we solve it? Don't come at it from a, you know, we're solving X, you definitely need this. I mean, it's just not going to fly at the moment. So you really need to take what their problems are and how you're going to solve them. And I think it's probably cliched, but if you're not in the industry, maybe you don't know it. The important thing to remember with the differences between B2B and B2C is that in B2B, you're also marketing to humans, right? Yeah, it's business to business, but it's also just human to human. And so, yeah, like I put on my third slide there to always have an empathetic tone. And I think that goes just as much for B2B as it does for B2C, and especially more so now that we're in Corona, in this pandemic. So yeah, definitely. I think just remember to always talk with an empathetic human tone. And as an Irish content marketer, I really I just want to stay away from jargon. I want to try and make sure that, you know, what I'm saying is understood. And I think in tech it can often be a problem, but that's one of the nice challenges that we have, I guess.
Nice. Thanks, Ben. Okay, moving on to the next speaker, we have Luis.
Perfect. Thank you. Well, tough acts to follow. Thank you, Kirsten and Ben. But actually, I really like the logic of the structure, because a lot of the things that I'm going to tackle have needed that segue of the two previous topics. So hello, everybody who's watching. I'm Luis Bracamontes. I'm the senior social media specialist of Tickets, not Ticket Swap, Tickets with a Q, and Q stands for quality. It doesn't stand for that, it's just so you remember it. So next slide, please. So what is Tickets? Tickets connects travelers with instant last-minute mobile tickets to top museums and attractions all over the world. So we're in the travel and culture industry, connecting these venues with people interested to experience culture in multiple ways during their trips. So as you may imagine, we were deeply impacted by by coronavirus. But can you go to the next slide, Matias? Thank you. We were on a really promising road. We were ranked top 5 hottest scale-ups in the Netherlands, Europe's hottest startups. Like, ooh, it's getting hot in here. It's summer. No, it's Tickets with a Q. We even got really good funding by Airbnb last year. But again, due to the global pandemic, our activities had to stop. Not only our industry, but many other industries got affected. So for us internally, that made us take a step back and say, okay, what are we going to do since we cannot sell anything? Not only is our business stopped, but also our partners. I think one of the best things that we have as a company is our relationship with the venues, the attractions, the museums, and they were also affected. They were part of our stakeholders in our community and more on a business to business level, but they were also affected. People who were planning their trips and had already purchased their tickets, they were affected. How could we respond to that? So can you go to the next slide, please? So we had to ask ourselves, as a brand, what do we have to say when we have nothing to sell? And I think this is a really good exercise for not only marketeers or content creators, for everybody who works in a company that's facing customers or that's facing partners on a B2B perspective. What do you have to offer when you don't want something in return? Do you really understand, again, as Ben was saying, what are the pain points of your stakeholders, whether are your clients or partners? And in the past months, we were also in the process of a transition as a brand, going to the next step with a new slogan, more ways to culture, a brand refresh. So it was a very interesting exercise to reflect on our brand, on our journey, and what do we stand for in these challenging times, in unprecedented times. That's the key word. Can you go to the next one, please? So we started by doing research, asking our community, what do you need? What's going on? People from the teams of supply, the regional managers, were in constant communication with the venues. What are your policies? When are you closing down? What do you need? On our side, the amazing customer support team was addressing all the people who wanted the refunds. We quickly put together a refund policy, clear communication, saying, don't worry, we understand the situation, we're here for you. And we're gonna attend to these needs, full transparency for refunds. But now we're here, we're stuck at home. But the need for art, inspiration, culture, travel is still there. And it's more present than even before, because you have this cabin fever, this pulse to go outside and explore. And that's the need that we had to tap into. So we ran a survey to our customers and also worked together with Google Zoo, their creative team, that's their think tank, to understand our community's behavior. And what we found out was that people were missing the most the travel and the activities outdoors, sometimes more than hanging out with friends. And some of them were deeply interested in in trying out virtual experiences. So we were asking ourselves, okay, what can we do with this? Next slide, please. So we quickly moved and threw out all the communication and marketing strategy we had planned for months. And we said, okay, let's address this. Put our brand values to test. If our slogan is more ways to culture, how can we bring actual more ways, different ways, multiple ways, alternative ways to culture now in this situation? So together, our team put together this project of more ways to culture at home, a new framing for our brand during the quarantine. Next slide, please. So we moved fast and we published 30 pieces on best ways to experience culture from home. We had this series of, oh, your trip to Paris got canceled, don't worry. Here's how you can experience this Parisian culture from the comfort of your home. Here you can try these 23 virtual museums from home. You can still access culture in different ways. We were not selling anything from that, but that wasn't the point. The point was, how do we respond to the needs of our customers, of our community, in ways that go beyond just a financial transaction, in ways that our brand can reflect what we stand for. Next one, please. On a social perspective, we also try to dive into new forms of expressing our brand. We started by doing a giveaway for a VR headset at the same time that we were promoting the virtual tours. You want to experience a museum? Here, participate, and we'll give you a list of museums you can explore, and also you can win a VR headset. We started implementing more 360-degree content on Facebook. For Instagram, we created a filter in which you could become a piece of art, of cubist art. If you cannot go and see art, then you can become art. Next one, please. For Instagram, we realized not only is our community of travel culture enthusiasts affected, also the creative industry. What about artists that cannot get paid, cannot exhibit their work? That's also a part of our community, a part of our target group. So we decided to start a pop-up exhibition, a homemade museum, where we would feature the works of art, photography, illustration, design from creators in an effort to create more user-generated content. As Ben said, user-generated content has a higher engagement rate because people see it as authentic. People see themselves represented in it. We also had a series where we were inviting people to give shout outs to all the cities that were affected by doing this throwback Thursday type of dynamic where they could send love to Italy by sharing their photos of being in Rome or being in Venice, sharing their love to Barcelona, the love to London, and in this process, creating this feeling of community and shared experience. Instead of sharing the same anxiety, we were sharing the same thrill to go back, to push forward, and to heal together. Next one, please. Now, we don't have a lot of time to go deep into it. We're also preparing a culture festival in partnership with a lot of venues all over the world to experience specific activities virtually. We will be revealing more of those details in the coming weeks. But this time has been also really interesting for us, as much as we've been affected by it. It has pushed us to find more ways to connect with our audiences, to start building a sense of community beyond just this one-time ticket transaction. So my takeaways and suggestions for all the creators, marketeers, social media strategies out there is: number one, identify your different stakeholders in your community. For us, it wasn't just the paying customers, it was also the venues. It was also internally the people at tickets, also the creative community who provides this, the culture and the access to attractions all over the world. Understand their pain points and desires. How are they affected? What do they want? What do they need? And how can we address those pain points and desires? Talking to them as three-dimensional humans, more than just a euro sign or, well, multiple currency sign. And always asking ourselves the golden question: if I saw or read this, would I care? Me as a human, rather than just this placeholder of a reader or a placeholder of a person clicking likes. Would I care? And if it passes this this barrier, like this filter from you, that it is a bit more likely that it's going to resonate with your audience. And lastly, don't try to sell. Make your audience feel part of your brand journey, because we as brands are more than just a product. We're an experience. We are a way that people can express their own identity through your services and products, and overall the benefits that your brand brings. And that's it for me. Next slide. And last one. Of course, I need to promote our channels. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, Twitter, TikTok, everywhere, because that's why we get paid. So remember, tickets with a Q. Q stands for quality. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. And we got a question because you mentioned that you guys surveyed your audiences. So Alex is asking, where do you ask your community what they need? Is this through the app, social media, or the platform? Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you for the question. Yes. So for this specific survey, we addressed some of the questions on social media, but the big chunk of the data we got, the results and the insights, were from an email campaign of our extensive database. So it was mostly a form that they received by email.
Nice. Great. Thank you, Luis, again. And more questions coming up, so please keep them coming, keep sending them, because after Sebastian, we're gonna address them all. So I just mentioned him. So moving into the last speaker, Sebastian from FanMov.
Hello, everybody. By the way, nice, really wonderful stories you shared before me. My name is Sebastian Mehldau, and I work for FanMov. I'm pretty sure some of you have heard or seen our bikes on the streets, but I'm not 100% sure how many of you know our vision. So our vision is to get the next billion people on bikes. Yes, we are very ambitious. And the way we want to achieve that is, next slide, please, by being best in class. But best in class in what? We want to build the best e-bikes in the world. As simple as that, but also as difficult as that. So yeah, recently we launched our latest effort in this direction. We launched our new bikes, the FanMov S3 and X3 models. And as Matias already hinted previously, we did that in the middle of a very difficult situation for a lot of people in the world and for a lot of companies. So how do we do it? Next slide, please. Well, I guess we were also a bit lucky because for two reasons. One, most of our sales are already online, so more than 70%. But also, bicycles turn out to be in high demand in times like these. So whereas a fantastic company like Tickets is struggling a bit more than other companies during this pandemic, we saw opportunity. And again, this is pure luck, right? We started working on the launch already in December. So way before we knew that this would hit us so hard. And what I will share today very quickly, very briefly, in a couple of minutes is how we did it. And we had to change our plans many times, but our objectives were always the same. So before I share a bit more about our strategy or approach to the launch, I would like to share a couple of numbers. If we can switch the slide, please. So during our launch on April 21, we had, or since our launch, we had more than 18 million views, more than 3 million website visits, around 65,000 leads. The day of the launch, we had 6,000 people watching our virtual event. Since then, we have had more than 3,000 test rides, and journalists are going crazy over our bike. So we have had more than 150 headlines. What you can tell from these numbers is that two things. One, I'm very numbers driven, and that makes me slightly different in this context, not in a good or bad way. But the other thing that you can notice from these numbers is that out of 6 of them, 5 are online interactions. So only test rides happened in the offline world. Everything else, video views, website users, even the launch event happened in the online world. Same as the emails that we collected, and most of the headlines, probably some of them were in print, but most were on online publishers. So how did we achieve that? Well, it was a mix of activities. I don't want to go over all of them, but what I can tell you more about, and the next slide, is about our approach to online media that became extremely relevant in this digital first approach. Well, first of all, we have a community of more than 120,000 FAMOF riders. And for them, we created content, and what we called the hype phase for maximizing leads. So trying to spot the signals who could be interested in this bike. And the message here was very simple. Something new and electric is coming. Then, of course, we also try to increase the brand interest, right, for prospects. People who maybe haven't heard about FAMOF before, or people who for the first time are considering buying an e-bike. And to them, and also to people who were leads, the message was the new FAMOF S3 and X3 is here. And so if in the first stage we focused on new CRM contacts, at this stage, what we really were looking for was a brand lift and product interest lift. So people searching for our brand online, people finding us online, maybe people reading reviews or asking their neighbors if they've heard about FAMOF before. And since then, our interest in our brand has gone through the roof, which was really nice to see. And then we also know that there are people who are in the think phase, that are on the fence of buying a bike. So they're not completely sure if the 2,000 euros are worth it. So for them, we try to offer test ride opportunities, even in these difficult times. So our message here is very simple. You have to ride it to believe it. So yes, we created a lot of hype, but now the bike is here and you can test it. And then ultimately, especially in what I do, what is very important is actually to get those sales coming in to achieve our mission of more people on bikes. And here you see that we use a mix of channels, mainly paid social, but also display advertising, email marketing, of course, organic strategies with content, with SEO, and social. It would be very long to go through execution for each of these channels, but what I can share in the next slide is how we basically on paid social translate those objectives into ads or content. For example, here on these examples on the right, you see an ad that is designed to drive test rides. It doesn't look much different than the one to the left. That is simply to drive sales online. But from the objective, we know how to optimize our ads to make those results happen. And then on the left one, we have an example of an Instagram story that's a bit more playful. That is more with the goal of reaching a broad audience and trying to lift their brand awareness. And we have many more examples and executions, but this is just trying to make it a bit more concrete. And this is basically what I wanted to share, but I want to also finish with a couple of takeaways of what this launch meant to people at the company. So for me and my coworkers. So first of all, we made a lot of plans. We worked really hard for months, but then we had to change those plans a couple of times. So we had to stay flexible and also hungry, and also and many times be fearless and just go and see what happens. But even if those plans change from time to time, we knew exactly what we wanted. So it all starts with our vision, but we also set very clear marketing objectives. So in the previous slide, I gave a couple of examples: hype, see, think, do, leads, test rides, purchases, and could be any other marketing objective. Also, since we are talking about interactions, we try to focus on meaningful interactions. So what drives value for our customers, but also for our company? So one example, a relevant example here is that we noticed that lead generation campaigns, and the interaction there is I give you something, you give me an email, is very beneficial for both sides, right? And we build a lasting relationship with our customers, and it starts many times from there. And finally, here are a couple of examples of ads. I think what is very important is to be very clear to your prospects, to your fans or your followers, what you want them to do and what is in for them. And those are just a couple of takeaways from this launch. There are many more, but it would take more than 10 minutes to go over all of them. So happy to share them.
Nice. Thank you so much, Sebastian. And I think that brings us to, there you go. By the way, beautiful slides. Honestly, Farmov always making great work with.
Thank you. Yeah.
Design.
Great designers. I cannot take credit for that.
Nice. Okay. So I have one question for you, and then we open space for questions from everyone. Something that I'm really impressed about Farmov is that, okay, you guys launch a new bike, and it's a premium. I mean, you guys sell premium bikes, let's say like that. They're not considered cheap, right? Especially in times of a pandemic where people are being more, let's say, reserved with their money, because everyone was like, oh, but what's going to happen? Am I going to keep my job? Am I going to lose my job? You know, so people were not spending that much. How do you manage to actually drive that engagement, be able to sell, you know, while everyone was not buying? You know, it's just like, for me, it's just crazy, right? Because you guys decided to continue with the launch. You launched the bike and went on and sold it, you know? So it's, do you think that's because you have a really engaging, like a really engaged community around Farmov? For
sure. I think the answer is, there are many answers to that question, but I would say, yes, it starts with a very enthusiastic rider community. So usually our bikes last for many, many years, right? They're built to last. But there are some people who have more than 1 or 2 Farmovs. They collect them even. So I think that enthusiasm, it starts from there. So I think that is very helpful. Other things that definitely didn't hurt is that we improved our supply chain in such a way that we could lower the price from more than 3,000 to the current price point, which is 2,000 euro. And this decision came way before what we're living through now. So it was not driven because of the pandemic, but definitely lowering the price point for the same set of features and the same quality. That was a positive thing, and it was a great marketing tool. And then I would say that also probably the best answer I can give right now is that we were very lucky. So in these weird times, there's a need for new ways to move from A to B. And so e-bikes are a growing market. We estimate, or there is an estimation that by 2025, it will be a 25 billion market. But the current crisis has accelerated that decision for many people. So yes, it is 2,000 euro, but the other alternatives, mobility alternatives, are not much cheaper either. So if it's a car or a bike, the price difference is drastic. But even, you know, public transport is expensive in the long run. And now with public health crisis, the choice is easy, I would say.
So we're getting a lot of, people are really happy with your slides, guys, and your content so far. So all of you, very well done. I'm guilty for pressuring all of them with time and slide content. So I think you did amazing. So very well done. And at the beginning of this webinar, we got a question that I think is important to address for, I think this is more for Ben and Kirsten. Because someone is Laura is asking, how can you manage a community within a very small and stretched team? And I think that resonates with a lot of people, right? Like I remember when I was reading about community building a long time ago, everything was about like big corporations building these really fancy communities with moderators and forums and whatever. And I was like, but if I'm in startup, you know, I have a small team and maybe I don't have a big budget, can I actually build a community? Can I actually get a lot out of it? What are your thoughts on this?
Well, there is this misunderstanding that a community needs to be big. But you can have a very, very valuable community of 25 people. So that's for starters. So it doesn't need to be big. What you need to have is a core group that creates a lot of content, that really is wanting to do a lot of things. So you shouldn't do it all by yourself. So if you are doing everything by yourself, then there's a big red flag that nobody's really waiting for it. You know, they might wait for the content, but not for the whole community thing. Right. And if you have a very small team, then you have to see the things that you already do on communication and marketing area, or in account management or relationship building. And you have to see if you can do it in a smarter way. So if you just want to build a community of, let's say, 50 clients, and you can share the tasks in, you know, everybody does a little bit, like everybody does 1 hour a week or half an hour a week, then you can already do something. So it doesn't need to be huge. You can just start small and start to experiment with, you know, how does it feel like to really be near your target group and to see what they need, to be continuously in relationship with them and get their feedback and be a matchmaker, because that's not given everybody, you know. To be a good matchmaker, it's a very important you know, quality that you need to have. So if somebody mentions something and you say, well, I heard that the other day also from, you know, Mary, she said the same. So how about you go and sit together, or you have a chat? Because I can imagine that more people, so you have to be continuously busy, you know, making matches.
I completely agree as well. If I can just jump in, I would also say that it depends on the size of your organization, of course, but I think it's really important to have buy-in in your own company across the board, right? I think when you make a decision to have a community or to go with an online community platform, it's really important that every department, or even if it's as small as every individual person, is behind what you're doing, right? And I think just throwing it all to one community manager, maybe you don't even have a community manager, right? It's nice if everyone, as Kirsten says, can chip in and everyone's behind it, and everyone ultimately sees that this engagement is what's driving like our brand awareness. It's driving people to, you know, come back to our company. So yeah, I think that's also really important too.
Yeah, and I think you both are touching upon a topic that we've been discussing in this webinar, and Luis mentioned it as well, is the fact of like not trying to sell all the time, right? And not focusing on the short-term results, and understanding that you are that building engagement, right? Yeah. Means providing value. And maybe that value doesn't come from the product that you're selling right now, but more of like, maybe, as you mentioned, Kirsten, enabling like creating relationships and facilitating and addressing those pain points that people might have, right?
Yeah. I think if a quick thing, the thing that they always think is that a community is an audience that you can sell to. So when you have the audience together, you can sell easily to it. But basically the audience works as a marketing machine. So when you're doing your marketing, you're also first doing your marketing, and then you're looking for the conversion. And with the community is your marketing machine, because they have word of mouth, they create the content, they help each other, and all these things, they create value. And from that, it comes back.
I think one last thing, just sorry, it's so interesting, but we also have I don't know if you know Deezer, who's like the Spotify music streaming app. They for example told me that a couple of weeks ago they just run a music quiz on their community. You know, like absolutely no selling involved. They just want people to come and have fun, and I think that's also an important thing to always run on your communities too. You know.
Totally. And I think that's definitely something that FanMof is doing well. And we just got a comment saying FanMof is a really good example of a brand that incorporates the why instead of the what in everything that they do. And they're saying that it's a really key point for marketing and social content. And I think definitely, I personally agree with you, Sebastian, because you started your slides with the big why behind FanMof instead of like, we're selling bikes, right? And it's that at the key, is that like the backbone of every strategy, every campaign that you guys conduct?
For sure, that is the reason behind all our, the purpose behind all our actions. For sure, we definitely also have the pressure to sell bicycles. I won't lie in that regard, but I think we are very lucky to have fantastic founders and fantastic leadership that understands that. the why is the most important thing here, and we hear it every day during our work, right? In one way or the other. So it drives a lot of decisions within FAMO for sure.
Yeah, and I think my next question is for Luis, and because you mentioned something that I'm sure is a struggle. I mean, for our audience as well, that is the fact that sometimes, you know, what you're communicating, it's not that much focus on selling, but exactly on like, you know, enabling conversations and helping people. But how do you deal with the pressure sometimes of, like, let's say OKRs or like KPIs of, like, you know, driving leads and selling when you cannot sell? You know, like, how do you have any advice for people that might be struggling with that at the moment?
I think for us at Tickets, happened something that maybe similar to the situations of many other companies. All the KPIs and OKRs went out down the drain. So all the expectations of what 2020 was going to be, this beautiful year of growth and sales, was completely destroyed. It was starting from scratch, first understanding the situation. And I think, of course, it has a lot to do with the way the company handles things internally, like the company culture, and what you start valuing. Like, I think for everybody, and regardless of the department, if you start getting into panic mode, it's highly unlikely that good decisions are going to come out. So I feel really proud to be part of this company that has, like, really, management has addressed this with so much tact and being completely transparent, but also moving fast. So, okay, what do we do? What can we do when we cannot sell? So I cannot talk about all the processes in the rest of the company, because a lot of it shifted into automation, like taking a step back and cleaning up processes, improving the services so it's cheaper, faster, better once we can start selling again. For us and the brand team, work didn't stop. On the contrary, it was like double, because now more than ever, we had the chance to be present and to connect with our audience without the pressure of the sales. You cannot sell anything, so at least, so it's a golden opportunity to establish a genuine benefit based relationship with your users, with your customers. It's not easy, it's not ideal, definitely not, but it's trying to get the silver lining of the situation.
Yeah, and if you can, maybe you can definitely do what Ben is doing, that is talking with your customers, validating your content points, right? Validating your strategies, making sure that they're relevant, that your assumptions are correct, that things are, like, there's a lot of things, right, that if you have the chance to work on, maybe it's a great chance right now to focus on, instead of like just selling and achieving, right?
Yeah.
Cool, guys. Okay, so this is super interesting, and I think we could keep going, but unfortunately we're out of time. So any last words, anything you would like to say to the audience that are watching right now or are watching in the future? It's your time.
Yeah, I could start.
Yeah.
I guess for all of the professionals in marketing, comms, advertising out there, I know these are really tense times. But something that one of our supply managers, regional managers, told us is that industries recover fast, mostly the cultural and travel industry, after the 2008 economical crisis, came back even stronger. So I would invite everyone to get ready, prepare good content, good material, good relationships with your audience, because we will recover. We will recover from this, and we will come back stronger. And follow us on social media.
Cool. Thanks, Luis. Anybody else?
Well, I want to basically confirm that also. I mean, it's what Ben said. It's an amazing time to be busy with digital platforms at the moment, because you see such a, I've been in this field since 2008, and it has been so hard for so many years to convince people to use the platforms, because offline was always better and online was scary and there's no trust and all those trolling, and now everybody's on it. Every age group, everybody who's ever had problems with it, they're all on it. So, I would say grab the chance to use a platform, and just to take any kind of platform and to make sure that you experiment with it, and start with a small group so that you get it in your fingers and you understand, next to your traditional marketing, you understand what community building can mean for your company.
Nice one.
Yeah, I would have 100% echo that, and I guess I would take it like Kirsten's coming at it from a very like a community, so that's what she built. I think I would go even further for myself and say that extends into content marketing as well. I mean, I guess I've considered myself a writer, and there's never been a time where people are more interested in content in general, especially obviously online. I mean, I spoke to my mum last week, and she's gone and done a podcast as well. I mean, this really is getting nuts, So I think I completely agree. Like, go online, produce content, get it out there, and engage with people. And yeah, I think there's no better time for it. And of course, I mean, everyone needs to stay safe and well. And I also want to say thanks very much to you guys at PR Labs for putting this on, because it's been really great to talk to all of you.
Thank you guys for joining. It's an honor, seriously. Sebastian, any last words?
Not really. Yeah, no, I think it was a really nice conversation. I'm happy to be part of it. And yeah, that's all. Stay healthy.
And having talked about communities, PR Lab is a community. So don't be surprised, guys, if people reach out to you after this to ask you for, I don't know, your slides or for advice. And we're here to help, as we always say. And yeah, it's been really insightful. We have a lot of content prepared, but as always, time is always a burden. But the important thing here is to just get started with these conversations and to address them and address the elephant in the room, right? Help each other with, I don't know, as the guys have been doing, sharing the behind the scenes of the strategies, tips, golden nuggets, etc. And yeah, having said that, thank you so much, all of you, for joining. Thank you so much for the audience. It's been a pleasure for me personally as well, because it's the first time I have a webinar with 3 other people with red hair. So we're 4 gingers in the room. It's amazing. So I really enjoyed it. And yes, we keep in touch, and I will see you hopefully in the next event, hopefully in person, if not online. Thank you so much, and stay safe.